validate the fact and embrace the fact that when we have these conversations, there's probably going to be some tears and some needs for breaks and walks and things like that. And it's a great opportunity to teach our children about healthy emotional expression and being able to lean on one another.
This is the James Cancer-Free World podcast. I'm Steve Wartenberg, and my guest is Sammy Rundo. Sammy is a James certified child life specialist, and as we all know, cancer impacts not just the patient, but their families as well. And in many cases, this means children, sometimes young children, and the child life team at the James helps kids understand what their parents are going through. And Sammy will fill us in on how she and her team at the James reach out to and help parents and their children get through all the ups and downs, the emotions and anxieties that are related to a cancer diagnosis and the treatments that follow. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So this term, child life specialist, is a little new to me and maybe some other people listening. So what do you do? What is a child life specialist?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's probably really good if you don't know what a child life specialist is.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so child life specialists have a background in development, amongst other things, in which our focus is how does development impact families and children as they experience and navigate medical or high-stress situations. So when we think about social work helping kind of those basic human needs, psychology helping some of those long-term psychological needs, nurses helping implement cares, provide cares, assess, doctors creating those plans, how do we kind of get those things done? And how do we help kids be empowered by the medical experiences they're going through as well as the individuals around them?
What would be the training that you would go through to become a child life specialist?
So there's some core competencies within there. Some individuals take a child and family sciences. I did mine in health and human studies. We've got some psychology backgrounds. And then there's some people who do dual tracks as well with like social work or OT, things like that.
So I'm guessing that a large comprehensive cancer center/hospital like the James it might not be the norm to have. Smaller places aren't going to have specialist experts like you.
Correct.
That this is a kind of a rare thing to have for families.
Yes. So we are quite a bit of a niche field in healthcare. Typically, we are in the pediatric setting of helping kind of implement those cares, normalize the hospital environment, support families, and then it really translated well to the adult center in terms of being around how do adults explain these things.
Yeah, that's true, because I get at Nationwide Children's Hospital, there's going to be child life specialists because it's all children they deal with. But here at the James, it's all adults, but many of these adults have children. So it's just another example of how a comprehensive cancer center is where you want to come if you're diagnosed with cancer.
Absolutely.
Because there just aren't specialists like you everywhere.
Correct.
So talk a little bit about the team, what it's composed of, and how parents would find out about you and connect with you.
Yeah, so we are a small but mighty team.
Okay.
So there are two of us for all of the James. We focus inpatient as well as outpatient. And the James does service a small pediatric population, so that is also involved in our support. But in terms of children of adult, we have a incredible social work team here. And so really we've been connecting with them on, if we're not here because we are so small and mighty, how do we help provide them a little bit more of that niche knowledge about children specifically when, let's say, they're coming bedside or we're getting an initial diagnosis and what do I do next? What do I tell my kids? We get a ton of referrals through social work and through all of the different kind of supportive services.
So there's many different avenues for the parents to reach you to talk to about their kids and to talk with their kids.
Yes.
So you've gotten the referrals and you're reaching out to a family and I'm not sure the right word, steps or strategies, but what are some of the ways that you talk to people about this? What are some of the different things you talk about?
So one of the first things that we're going to do is figure out what's going on. What's the medical situation? Who's involved? Who are the children? So sometimes we think the child is going to be they're going to be their parent who is diagnosed. But maybe you're a teacher and you've got a classroom of 30 kids and you aren't sure How do I explain this to a classroom of 30 kids? How do I tell my soccer team? Or it might be I'm a grandparent or I'm an aunt or uncle. And so I have children in my lives or in my life. How do I navigate this? Then we learn a little bit about the children involved. Maybe what is their understanding? Have they ever heard the word cancer before? Has anybody in the family or the community had cancer? What are other medical situations that the family has been in that would inform us maybe kind of what that baseline information is or understanding the child might have? Then we're going to ask about developmental considerations because your chronological age does not always equal your developmental age.
Yeah, some kids are smarter earlier, know more earlier than other kids.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious that when you talked about have kids even heard of cancer, what has been your experience? Do kids, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7, 8, is there a certain age when that sort of becomes knowledge or not?
Yeah, so it's pretty multifactored. So kids are dynamic humans, right? It's typically around that, like once we're starting to enter school, we're entering more social situations. We are in a classroom where maybe a kid is more open and sharing and forthcoming with information and is like, my so-and-so had cancer. Oh, and they died. And you're like, whoa, that is not all cancer. Can you tell me a little bit about hearing the word cancer now, how that might make you feel? Right? And then we can start to kind of dig into how cancer is different in each person and start to clarify some of those misconceptions where we've kind of globally heard the word cancer and said, well, if my person has cancer, or I've heard the word cancer, something really, really bad must be coming. And it's not always the case.
Yeah, because now, I mean, I don't know the exact percentage, but I think half or more people, it's not going to be life-threatening. So
Exactly. So we are living much longer with more serious diseases or illnesses. And so how do we prepare families to navigate that?
Okay. What would be another thing you would talk to about?
We are going to then maybe see what does support look like for that family. Are they looking for having the conversation with child life, or are they looking for resources and kind of validating the steps that they've already taken? So sometimes families have already had the conversation that mommy or daddy or auntie has cancer. These are the resources they've used. And sometimes they're just getting a little bit of validation, a little bit of coaching, or they're like, I don't think I can navigate this conversation. Or what we've said, things have started to change. And I don't think they're quite getting it the way we thought they were. Could we bring them in?
Okay, so it can be one of two ways. You can help the parents or grandparents or aunt and uncle explain it to the children, or you can talk directly to the children.
Correct. And sometimes that looks like talking. Sometimes that looks like using books. So there are a lot of great books out there. And we have one of our child life specialists, the other child life specialist, did a comprehensive review of children's books out there. I think she read like 160 children's books on cancer. I maybe read 15, 20 of those, which is not an easy undertaking, so that we could really give personalized referrals for this is your situation, this might be a good book for you.
I hadn't even thought about that. And then that there's well over 100 books on this. This is how, I guess, just shows what an important topic it is and that there are issues in discussing it and learning about it. So,
and I'll clarify, that also includes books about end of life for children. And so when families are navigating that conversation, books are a great way for parents to really, or the adults to really see how and what language is used with children around this, especially if there are cultural considerations, words we want to avoid, if there's religion that we would like to take into consideration, or if that's even the approach they want to take. Maybe they want a customized book, which if it would be appropriate, we can create some customized books for families.
How do you create a customized book?
So we are very industrial or industrious here. And so sometimes that looks like, are there words that you want to omit from this? Do we not even want to say cancer? Do we want to say tumor? Do we want to talk about where it is in the body? We've got some creative solutions on creating some of this content and images around it. And sometimes those books actually include pictures of their loved ones. So let's say they're admitted.
Wow.
And we're taking pictures of the room and then pictures of their loved one with maybe the additional medical equipment they are currently requiring or needing at the moment, to just give an introduction to before you come bedside and see your loved one in a very different way.
Okay, that was a great introduction and overview. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about how you help families.
Awesome.
The best outcomes for treating cancer come from early detection and early diagnosis.
The James Cancer Diagnostic Center at Ohio State
is designed to provide rapid evaluation and a clear diagnosis.
We are transforming care by giving patients direct access
to cancer experts who study and treat cancer every day.
If you think you have cancer, the choice is clear.
Choose the James Cancer Diagnostic Center.
We're back with Sammy Rundo, a child life specialist at the James. So I'm guessing that these can be emotional discussions. So how do you help people, parents and children, deal with the emotional side of talking about cancer?
Yeah, that's, there's times where I'm speaking with adults and I'm, doing my own grounding techniques as we're navigating these conversations. So one of the things that we really encourage families to do is validate that these are hard conversations, and taking the time as the adults to information gather, maybe rehearse the words, not just think about the words we're going to say, but actually say them out of your mouth, because they might elicit some emotion that's a bit stronger than we want to have in front of the children in our lives. But then validate the fact and embrace the fact that when we have these conversations, there's probably going to be some tears and some needs for breaks and walks and things like that. And it's a great opportunity to teach our children about healthy emotional expression and being able to lean on one another.
I like that idea of rehearsing, that you can sort of rehearse in your own mind what you'll say and the possible responses you'll get, so you're sort of kind of prepared, although you can't prepare totally.
Correct. Some of that coaching is that for adults of priming that what is your biggest worry about what they're going to ask if you introduce this topic. And we get to have that conversation if they're working with a child life specialist one-on-one, and it elicits quite a bit of emotion. And our goal is that the next time they navigate that conversation, it's a little bit more manageable.
So once you've done that, you've sort of talked about it in the big picture way, then do you get specific about this is what mom or dad's specifically going to go through: surgery, radiation, chemo, things like that?
Yeah. And sometimes in these books, or when we're talking about it, it's really about being mindful about what your children have heard about it. So we like to prime families for curiosity versus just explaining or info dumping. So can you tell me what you've heard, or have you ever heard about the word cancer? What does that mean to you? Have you ever heard of the word surgery? Has anyone ever mentioned chemotherapy or chemo or really strong medicine? Have you ever seen a commercial where somebody with cancer doesn't have hair?
Oh, yeah.
And so we start to prime some of these things to better understand what children understand, so that we're not projecting what they think or what we think they know.
But the idea of they're going to see a lot of stuff on TV.
Yeah.
Even at a pretty young age, of
Correct.
commercials for cancer treatment in hospitals and TV shows that deal with it. So they probably know more than we might think.
Yeah. And sometimes we talk about TV is meant to be dramatic. It's drama. And it's not always what reflects real life. So let's talk about some of the things that you've seen that are maybe making you feel worried, and let's talk about some of those wonders. So we talk about worries and wonders a lot, especially with our younger groups. And then as people get older, we maybe change the way we talk about maybe not wonders and worries, but what curiosities do you have and what concerns you?
Oh, that's a good point. Someone's going to be 7 or 8 is going to be a different conversation than someone who's 14.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you have to, it's a whole different, they're going to know a lot more. And okay. And then, I mean, it impacts kids on their kind of daily life, and they somehow have to figure out how to, keep going to school, keep doing sports or homework and
tests.
Yeah. So how?
Social interactions. it's so well intended. Sometimes parents are like, I don't want them to know. I don't want to impact their life. And it's like, well, you're a major pillar of their life. What impacts you impacts them. And if they don't have context around it, they're just kind of floating in their own thought. And the younger we get, kind of the more creative or worrisome the reason why can be. So when we don't give people context around, we're more tired, we can't take you to your sports, you need to be with grandma more, I can't pick you up from school, you can't go to sleepovers right now because it's flu sick season and I don't know.
I can't get sick. Yeah.
If I can't get sick. And so how do those things start to impact your children becomes a big factor in their life.
Boy, it would be, kids are smart. It would be hard to, if you don't tell them, they're going to figure something's going on.
Yeah. And sometimes parents tell me, they're like, well, what could be worse than cancer? And I say, well, thinking that you just don't want to be around them.
The kids thinking that.
Yeah. And parents going, oh my God, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Never. And I said, well, they don't know.
Yeah.
There's no context
Right.
around it. And you don't have to be harsh with your words and explaining really challenging things. Here are some ways that maybe we can explore how to talk about these things to a 5-year-old versus a 10-year-old versus a 15-year-old.
Do you want, once you explain all this and the kids have a good understanding, can they then become involved in kind of the caregiving side of it?
We want to be really mindful of that. And we talk to kids about that, of ways they can lean in and be helpers. And so caregiving and helpers, pretty much the same thing, right? If you know or notice your loved one is more tired and wants to go lay down, can I get you a blanket? That would be developmentally appropriate. Taking care of your other siblings, it starts to get interesting, and every family is unique in how they navigate these things. But we do provide some context around what are ways that kids can lean in and help that feel appropriate for the family and appropriate from a developmental standpoint.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want to put too much responsibility on the kids. You want to give them, but you want them involved, it sounds like, but at the appropriate level.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I talk to parents and they go, you know, I don't think my kids get how serious this is. Like when I say I have a headache, they're still so loud.
Yeah.
Or they're doing
kids.
this, or they want to go do this thing, and I have to remind them that, like, I'm sick. And I said, well, can you remind me how you told them about this? And they're like, well, I told him I'm sick, but it's going to be okay. And I said, well, it sounds like you're really well bonded. They have a lot of trust in you. And you told them that while you are sick, you are okay. And they trust you. So it might be time for the conversation to shift, to give them a little bit more context around how sick you are and the things that might need to change. And it might not be forever, but it is for right now.
Wow, so that sort of brings up the point of when is the right time and how much do you want to tell, and what is the answer to that? Tough question.
Yes, it's a very tough question. It's very personal. You also, as an adult, have to be mindful that what you share with a 7-year-old might become public knowledge.
In school.
Because they're 7 or they're 6. And so really the thing that we encourage families to think about is how much impact is it having on the children, and are there going to be noticeable changes in the way that we appear? So are we maybe losing weight? Are we maybe gaining weight because of the medications that we're on that don't seem typical to their parent? Are they starting to have hair thinning or losing their hair, things like that? And so we do want to prepare them for what they're going to see or experience. And then really it's up to the family on navigating that conversation. But when they work with us, our goal, and social work as well, our goal is to really consider what makes the most sense for that family. And we always think about, like, it's the right people at the right time with the right information. And that's hard because you're like, well, what do you mean the right? And so things like, maybe don't tell them before they've taken a nap.
Oh, not only the right time and like...
Maybe don't tell them before they've had a snack.
Okay,
you know, let's maybe have a snack, have it at a time in the day where they are kind of the most grounded in themselves. Hey, we need to have a conversation today. It might be a little bit tough of a conversation, would you like to bring a stuffed animal or one of your comfort items or comfort, blankie with you? We're going to go sit in the living room and have a chat with the family. And if you have kids that have very different ages, it might be appropriate to tell your older child a little bit before you tell your younger child, so you can prepare for what those responses might look like.
Oh, that's a good point. In my mind, I was seeing the mom or dad or both sitting down with all the children at once, but you're saying that in some cases, depending on how close or far apart the ages are, you could do it separate.
Yeah, and for parents knowing their children of like, I have one child who loves information and they're going to ask a million questions, and they're going to ask questions that like really might stress my other child out, who doesn't really love to know all of this stuff and just needs to know that I'm okay and I'll update them when things change. That might be appropriate to have conversations, not way different timelines, just in case they overhear some things, but just to be thoughtful of what that timeline looks like. And it might be having a supportive family member or having a supportive grandparent or the parents being together, whatever that looks like. It's really just about who are the right people for the adults in sharing the information.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I'm guessing that the grandparents can have a big role in this too, can be like a source for the kids to go to for comfort or to talk or to just spend time with.
Yeah, and that brings up a great point of it can also be really helpful to get an idea of who in your community you want knowing, as well as this is likely going to impact your children. So does their principal know? Does their teacher know? Does their school nurse know? Just from the standpoint, and sometimes I tell families it's a great idea to maybe email them so you have it in writing. These aren't things that you have to say out loud, which can be hard to say even to other adults. We can get sidetracked. But even identifying those boundaries within school of, at this time, we want you to know, but we are keeping this within our family. Please don't share with other teachers or members of the community. Should that be a situation that changes and we want to broaden who knows, we'll let you know. Thank you for your support.
So in those cases, when the family and the kids come into you and here at the James, I understand you have a visual aid that you brought with us that you use to help kids understand some of the medical procedures and anatomy.
Yes. So for those of you listening, unfortunately, you cannot see this wonderful doll that I am using today. But one of the things that we do is we often use a lot of play equipment, which could be a stuffed animal, or when you're visiting us is going to be a hard doll, so we can wipe them down, keep them nice and clean. But I have a medical play toy in my hands that has an actual port. So
the port is connected to his chest like a real port.
Absolutely, dressings and all. And so kids can kind of explore, like, this is how we would connect to allow your loved one to get their medicine while they're in the hospital. And actually, even though this looks, kind of different, it's not like anything we've maybe seen before, this helps make sure that they don't have too many pokes. We can connect this and give them the medicine that they need for a long period of time, maybe like a day or a week, and this helps keep their body as safe as possible.
It sounds like the philosophy is the more the kid understands about the actual procedure of getting chemo through a port or getting radiation, it erases some of, but probably not all of the fear and anxiety.
Absolutely. And if you think about it for adults too, you're like,
yeah,
they have a what?
Right? Yeah.
What do you mean? A tube is coming out of where? For what reason? And so when we can see it, when we can manipulate it, we can also talk about the importance of keeping our hands clean. Hugs might look different. We need to be gentle around their body because this is there.
Yeah.
We don't want to pull on things. And so you can kind of get an idea for also how they feel about it. And if they back up and they're like, no, I don't like that. It also gives the parents an idea of how much do they want to see her and be involved or no.
So this is a great aid for the patient themselves.
Kinda.
So that's because because
Yeah.
it's going to be the first time they may have ever heard
Exactly.
or understood this. So
Yeah.
that's a great tool to help kids
Yeah.
and their parents understand what's going on.
Yeah. And we can get pretty creative.
I am always amazed. Kids are amazingly resilient and
Yes.
smart, and I bet you've learned a few things from them.
Absolutely. It's just, I mean, it's kind of the gift of this position. You are being invited or welcomed. These people are often receptive and wanting this service. And so you're getting really unique looks into people's lives. And one of the things that is just a resounding, just beautiful thing is how not only resilient kids are, because they've got, that neuroplasticity, they're really flexible, but also they are great at kind of identifying how much information is enough and then transitioning back into what brings them joy or brings them ease or brings them rest. And I think there's a lot of learning adults could do in that regard. So sometimes parents are like, this is just going to be such a big conversation. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I can't even get it started. And they're 5 minutes in and their kid goes, okay, I'm going to go play now. And they're like, okay. And they take off.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you learn from kids what they need, like
What they need.
You personally have learned when it's enough, because the kid gives you the
Yes.
cues that I know
Yes.
enough. I'm ready to go play with my doll.
Yes. And so it kind of lends us into not every conversation has to be the biggest, longest,
Yeah.
most emotionally taxing conversation. It's little conversations over time in which we establish trust and openness and communication preferences. And you learn so much about families, and to see families grow and become stronger through this, despite this, is really profound.
So it sounds like, I always like to ask people what kind of motivates you to do what you do. And you just sort of touched on it a little, but tell us a little bit more about what motivates you to become part of these families' cancer journeys.
It's different for everybody, but for me, there's something unique about how do we do this? Yes, this information is out there, but how do you actually do it? And how do we bring joy into it? How do we bring light into it? Naturally, I'm inclined to be a little bit of a heavier person. Let's have the chat. And this work really reminds you that it's just moments, and that you can get through moments, and that you can have fun, and you can build memories, and you can bring silly things into this hospital. You can color, you can paint, you can do your Christmas show for your loved one who's laying in bed sick, and it doesn't all have to be super heavy and sad. And so to be able to help facilitate that in some of the hardest moments in people's lives is just an honor.
I just find it amazing the just scope of services that are available at the James. And now
Absolutely.
certified child life specialist is one I didn't really know about, but I'm so glad you filled us in on the great work you do.
Thank you. And it's been we're a newer service, and so we've been just thrilled and honored to be welcomed with such open arms by staff. And there's so many different ways that people want to include kids, support families, and we're thankful to be, a small piece of that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast is brought to you by the Ohio State University Comprehensive Cancer Center, Arthur G. James Cancer Hospital, and Richard J. Solove Research Institute. For more information, check out our website, cancer.osu.edu.